From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Saving a life.
So we have to be looking at subtle clues.
The warning signs to watch for to try and prevent suicide from impacting your farm. Two big stories involving two big buys.
The auction started out at $15,000 an acre and ended up in 15 minutes at $34,800 an acre.
One is a land deal, another involves a big sale of corn.
It was huge.
What these sales have to say about the ag economy right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the name on the cap matches the power of one's purpose. Pioneer, what's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan, coming to you from our Farm Journal studios in Kansas City. Clinton is on assignment. Well, we begin with two big buys, one for corn and another for land. We'll start with a flash sale of corn to Mexico. USDA reporting the country purchased 1.66 million metric tons of corn, or more than 65.4 million bushels. AgDay's Michelle Ruck joins us. Michelle, this appears to be the biggest buy of corn by anyone so far this year.
The 64.5 million bushel sale of corn to Mexico is the 11th largest daily export sale on record and the third largest sale of corn to Mexico. And it's especially impressive considering the ongoing USMCA trade dispute between the United States and Mexico. As of September 14th, Mexico had booked more than 6.1 million metric tons of U.S. corn. That is over the 4.9 million from last year at this time and 5.4 million from 2 years ago. The buy signals that despite the ongoing trade tiff over Mexico's ban of GMO corn for human consumption, end users there still want U.S. corn. They may also be concerned about the outcome of the formal trade complaint.
It was huge. I mean, Mexico coming in, buying over 1 million metric ton of old crop corn and over 600,000 of new crop corn. It shows that even though the press is saying, that we're hearing stories that Mexico isn't interested in our corn, the private purchasers or the users in Mexico certainly want our corn, or they're worried they're not going to be able to get the supplies they need to be able to make their commitments. So they're aggressively buying corn out of the U.S.
Mexico may also be worried U.S. corn yields could decline. Plus, the buy may be an indication U.S. corn prices are finally getting low enough to be competitive globally.
Well, I think what it signals to me is that corn is in a value area. I felt that 450 to 475 would prove to be value and probably is the candidate for where our harvest low is going to be if we haven't made it already.
The U.S.'s main competition has been Brazil with their record safrinha corn crop and lower prices and freight rates. However, U.S. corn exports for this marketing year have been improving. 3 weeks into the new marketing year, sales are just 6% behind a year ago, and corn export inspections are running above last year. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, sold. There's a new record land sale on the books, this time in Missouri. The price, $34,800 an acre. And it wasn't an investor who paid such a premium price. It was a local farmer. According to the bill of sale from Dyer and Finner auctioneers, the record sale happened last Thursday in Saline County, Missouri. Two farmers got in a bidding war, and in just 15 minutes, 115 acres sold for $34,800 an acre. The buyer was a farmer by the name of Jeff Baxter. Jim Rothermich, known as the Land Talker on social media, says the bidding started at $15,000 for the piece of ground that had been in the same family for 4 generations. Rothermich says the land market has definitely seen a slowdown, but this just proves if it's high quality ground and the buyer has cash, anything is possible.
What I'm surprised is me, the last time we'd seen a record price was November 10th, 2022. It was $30,000 an acre in Sioux County, Iowa, 73 acres. At that time, I thought that record would last for a couple of years, or at least until we got back to $7 corn, $7, $8 corn. Well, that record didn't even last a year. And not only did we go past it, we blew past that.
Rothermich telling AgDay that high interest rates haven't showed up in the land market just yet, but he thinks it eventually will. And when it does, he thinks it will impact land prices. And another story we're tracking right now, the deadline for a government shutdown is just days away. And Washington, D.C. is already preparing for the worst. Federal departments and agencies have started the process of bringing a halt to non-essential functions. Should a shutdown happen, nearly 4 million federal employees would be impacted immediately. But it would also have a snowball effect across the U.S., including the Bureau of Labor Statistics not releasing financial information, which would make it hard for the Federal Reserve and investors to figure out the economy. And the White House says travel will be affected as well because air traffic controllers and TSA workers would not be getting paid. Meanwhile, discussions continue about how to keep things running.
Let's pass a 30 to 60-day continuing resolution. Let's make sure it's not loaded up.
You can't keep spending $7 trillion when you're only taking in $5 trillion. That just doesn't work.
Congress has until Saturday to make a deal to keep the government funded. The leaders of the bipartisan House Problem Solvers Caucus say, quote, all options are on the table, end quote, to force a vote on a plan to keep the government funded through January 11th. USDA also planning for a possible government shutdown. The agency's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service and Federal Grain Inspection Service saying it will continue operations as they are funded by user fees. However, regulatory enforcement and standards development could be disrupted. Key reports will also be impacted. NASS telling Farm Journal Washington analyst Jim Wiesmeyer that phone surveys for the October 12th crop production report are scheduled to run this Friday through next Wednesday. And unless a deal is reached by then, NASS will ask enumerators to make as many contacts as possible ahead of Friday. If a shutdown occurs, all data collection will halt at midnight on September 30th. Whether NASS can release the report as scheduled all depends on how long a shutdown lasts. The most recent partial government shutdown affected USDA loans and grants for rural communities, paused funding for food banks, and even closed thousands of Farm Service Agency county offices. However, the Biden administration announcing more than $1 billion in funding for rail infrastructure safety. It will go towards 70 projects in 35 states. It comes after a series of high-profile rail accidents, including February's derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. None of the funding is going to that community specifically. An administration official said that's because there were no grant applications from the town. But Ohio is getting more than $26 million in total. Nebraska is another state getting funding to modernize the Cornhusker Railroad, including improving track, grade crossings, and a rail car repair facility. The Midwest finally seeing more rain in places, but will it be enough to slow down harvest? Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has an update.
Yeah, basically looking at another ridge of high pressure developing over Texas, Oklahoma, keeping things dry. But two areas that we're monitoring regarding that jet stream that could bring in some rainfall in and across the Midwest. Now, this is for the next 7 days and then back here towards the West Coast. And of the two, this one looks a little bit deeper, a bigger or deeper trough developing back out the Pacific Northwest, which means that rain after the 7-day period could be dragging over here towards the east and across the United States with some cooler temperatures attached. But over the next 7 days, it's really the Midwest, and check out down near Florida as well. We're expecting some decent rainfall to occur. Now, speaking of decent, this is better than decent. Check this photo out from Minnesota. Ben sending this one in off in the distance. He's getting a little harvest time in Minnesota. A beautiful sunset to cap off a good day out in the fields. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
AgDay is brought to you by ESN. Maximize the performance of your nutrient applications and minimize nitrogen loss by applying ESN. Learn how at smartnitrogen.com.
While fall harvest is ramping up, it's also prime time to be planting cover crops to help flip your soil and even provide some livestock feed. For farmers looking to improve soil health, they can add a cover crop to the rotation in the fall. If they also have livestock, they see an added benefit from crops such as cereal rye, turnips, or radishes.
And I think first and foremost, the livestock producers, especially those with the grazers, the cattle, cow-calf producers, have really learned how to use cover crops in their operation because they see the benefit of that fall grazing. Just like grazing corn stalks, the benefits of that as well.
Bly says as the livestock graze, the hoof action in the field helps aerate the soil and stimulate biological activity. The cattle manure also provides great organic fertilizer for next season. The U.S. dollar gaining strength again on Monday. We'll look at the impact on the markets coming up, and later what you need to know about suicide on the farm and how you might be able to save a life. Despite that big buy of corn from Mexico, corn futures didn't see much upward movement to start the week. Michelle Rook is back with more in Markets Now.
Corn and soybeans up on Monday. Ellen Brugler with Brugler Marketing joining us. And Ellen, nice recovery in corn and soybeans, especially the bean market after taking out that August low.
Yeah, I think we got a little profit taking by the bears there finally. You got to remember, November beans were down 44 cents last week, and then we started off the overnight and the early morning trade lower. Got to some of their profit targets. We were oversold and picked off the stops around that support level on the charts. And then you kind of back off and say, okay, we've got crop condition ratings and crop progress coming out tonight, and then look ahead to the grain stocks report at the end of the week.
Yeah, I was going to say today's action of both corn and soybeans, how much of it was tied to end of month, end of quarter? You're going into the big reports on Friday.
I think we're starting to do that. Most of that action will be on Tuesday and Wednesday, traditionally. But we know that these end of September reports can be pretty volatile because this is where USDA squares up their numbers for last year and can adjust their crop production. It's also really difficult fourth quarter calculation on the corn for feed and residual use because you get a mixture of new crop and old crop being used in August. And so those numbers can move a couple 100 million bushels on you. So the trade's right to be a little bit cautious here.
Corn ended higher with the help of the Mexican export business, but we also had a higher weekly close, just a slightly higher weekly close last week. But is it enough to say that maybe we put in a harvest low, or are we trying to?
We're in a perfectly good place for a harvest low, but that could be true for a couple more weeks. It looks to me like we're base building here. I'm a little nervous that there could be one more swing down. It might be after the USDA reports, and simply because we have a gap on the daily continuation chart between where September went off and where December is now. Keeping that gap open is positive. The Mexican corn sale was definitely positive news, primarily because of the size of it. But we have to remember that Mexico's already on the USDA balance sheets for this kind of volume. So we need to get these sales on the books to Mexico to make the WASDE numbers that are already in place.
Now, hopefully we will see some more. Thanks so much for joining us, Ellen Brugler, Brugler Marketing. And that's Markets Now. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
To talk to Alan about his ag market professional services, call Brugler Marketing and Management at 402-697-3623 or visit his website, www.bruglermarketing.com. AgDay is brought to you by EndZone from Farm Shop MFG. Rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's a free semi-load added to your bottom line. What are you waiting for? Call to order your EndZone today.
All right, looked at the rain chances a little bit ago. Now this is the temperature outlook. We can almost call it Hottober, maybe. Not the last time you're going to hear that, I promise you. You see September 30th through October 4th, you got the heat, the warmth, well above average temperatures. Nearly 2/3 of the United States is setting up that ridge over here towards the east, and then a trough digging down to the south, and that's going to welcome in some cooler than average temperatures during this time period. Now, in terms of the rain, you'll see the rain chances increase right where we had that bubble, that circle over the Midwest. That's Tuesday and into Wednesday. And as we looked at earlier, a little bit deeper trough and back up here to the northwest is going to bring in not only the rain, but the cooler temperatures as well in the long term. Once we get on the other side of Thursday and Friday, there's that warmth going into October, and where that ridge builds to the north, the trough digs to the south. And this is, again, one of those typical patterns that we see as we transition from summer and into fall. It is going to be this yin and the yang between the jet stream. Between the two, the ridge and the trough, is where we could see not only some thunderstorms, but also possibility of some snow as well in the higher elevations. The time on this is going to be Saturday and into Sunday of next week. If this ridge breaks down, that's where we'll start to see that energy translate to the east. Right now, it looks like it's going to hold all the way through next Monday and Tuesday, which means most of this energy will either sit or go to the north and to the northeast. east. Again, that's if this ridge has trouble breaking down, which right now it's looking like we may get into next Tuesday and Wednesday discussing this pattern. As for the flooding potential, that's coming back to this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. In terms of concerns, about a 5 to 15% chance of some flooding or heavy downpours into Illinois, Wisconsin, a little bit into Indiana as well. Watch near Florida Peninsula. You got the entire state of Florida, about 5 to 15% chance of some flooding potential, not only on Tuesday, but also on Wednesday as well. After that, ridge high pressure starts to build in, and that pattern that we just looked at in the jet stream starts to set up. We'll start off in Power, Montana, partly cloudy. Population 121, high around 79 degrees. Got Alabama, mostly sunny, high around 91, low of 68. London, Kentucky, cloudy, high around 83 degrees.
The trend continues when it comes to cattle on feed. We'll have the latest numbers coming up and important conversations that could save the life of someone you love. What you need to know about farmer suicide coming up on Ag Day. The latest cattle on feed report shows numbers are continuing to drop. USDA pegging total cattle and calves on feed at 11.1 million head on September 1st. That's 2% below last year's inventory at this time. Placements, those totaled 2 million head. That's 5% below 2022. Marketings came in at 1.88 million head. That's down 6%. And this is the 12th consecutive month that feedlot numbers have been down in the report.
Every month that we have these cattle on feed reports, it's just that, I think, general reminder of how tight we are. The on-feed numbers less, the placements less, the marketing's less. I mean, we are just that tight on numbers.
That's a trend that will continue given shrinking U.S. calf supplies. And the first Milk Business Conference award winners have been announced. This year's Young Producer Award winner is Ben Smith of Cool Lawn Farm in Remington, Virginia. The Leader in Technology Award winner is Chris Sisedale of Pagels Ponderosa Dairy in Kewanee, Wisconsin. And the Employee Excellence Award winner is Lorenio Vitorino of County Line Farm in Denair, California. They will be recognized at the 2023 Milk Business Conference set for November 28th through the 30th. It's taking place at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. We will be there at this year's conference, covering it for several Farm Journal platforms. Well, coming up, what you need to know about the alarmingly high rates when it comes to suicide among farmers and the possible warning signs. Those are next.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
It is a heavy topic, but an important one to end the newscast this morning. Did you know that the rate of suicide among farmers is 3.5 times higher than the general population? It's a startling statistic and a sign of the daily stress that comes with farming. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. According to the CDC, between 2000 and 2020, suicide rates climbed to 46% in rural areas. That compares to the 27.3% in metro areas. Stephanie Weatherly, Chief Clinical Officer for Psychiatric Medical Care, says not only is the rate of suicide higher in rural communities, but it's especially true with the elderly.
45% of farmers and rancher suicides in the last 15 years were committed by people age 65 and older. So it just really hits home the risk that we have to the elders in our community, that not only do they have the higher risk just because of their profession, but they also have a higher risk with their age. So those compounded together can be a really high risk for people in your communities.
Psychiatric Medical Care is a company that provides mental health services specifically to rural communities. They're in 130 rural hospitals today. And she says while it's improving, the stigma surrounding mental health still exists.
I think some of the biggest misconceptions is that people think people stop working or they stop having life when they're depressed or when they're thinking of harming themselves. And we know that's not true. A lot of times the community around this person is surprised when the person's life has ended. So we have to be looking at subtle clues.
So what are some of those subtle clues? Well, she says sometimes it can be an increase in short-term or chronic illnesses, changes in a person's daily or weekly routine, or even someone having more accidents on the farm. Weatherly says if you notice any of these, say something, because having those conversations can help.
We know that 80% of people who suffer from depression can go into total remission. So in other words, if you're struggling with depression, you can get better. You can get better. You just need to get the help that you need.
And don't forget, if you are needing to talk to someone, you can call or text the suicide hotline. That number is 988. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Ty Morgan. Have a great day in Farm Country.